something to be said for marijuana.
Okay, we're going to start. Welcome to the Personnel Committee meeting. Mr. Heckman is ill, so I'm going to run through these. Is there any courtesy of the floor today? Hearing and seeing none, let's move into the review of the county executive's appointments and reappointments to the Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council, Election Commission, Housing Authority, Industrial Development Authority, Mental Health, Early Intervention and Developmental Programs Advisory Board, and the Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley. First, we have a recommendation for appointment to the Area Agency on Aging Advisory Board, a Yolanda Braun. Ms. Braun's being considered for an appointment to the board, term to end on June 30th, 2023. Any comments or questions regarding this appointment?
No, I'm good. I'll make a motion to move it.
Thank you. Next, we have an appointment for the Election Commission, a Democrat. This is Sharon Gavin Levy from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. She is a registered Democrat, being considered for a 2-year term to begin February 18th, 2022, and to end December 31st, 2023. Any questions or comments regarding this?
Comment.
Yes, sir.
I think we crossed it and dotted the T on this one. That's, if I'm not mistaken, that's Harold Levy's wife. I make a motion to move it forward.
Second.
So moved. Recommendation for an appointment to the Housing Authority. Michelle Roy from Easton will replace Christopher Gulata, who recently resigned. Her term will begin February 18th, 2022, and end on February 9th, 2023. Resume is attached. Any questions or comments regarding this?
Can we move her forward, please?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Thank you. A reappointment to the Housing Authority for Paulette Guilfoyle, term to begin February 10th, 2022, end on February 9th, 2027.
Move.
Second.
Thank you. Recommendation for appointment to the Industrial Development Authority, Gordon Heller from Wingap. Mr. Heller is being considered for a 5-year term to begin on March 17th, 2022, and to end March 17th, 2027. Mr. Heller will replace Gretchen Rice. Any comments or questions?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Next, we have a recommendation for appointment to the Mental Health, Early Intervention and Developmental Programs Advisory Board, Christine O. Malika, PhD, from Easton. Ms. Malika is being considered for a 3-year term beginning February 18th, 2022, ending January 23rd, 2024. And she is a new appointment.
Make a motion to move it.
Thank you. Also, there is a reappointment to that board, a John Timothy Boyer from Bethlehem.
Make a motion to move him too.
Second.
Thank you. And
Second sheet there.
let's see. Just checking that I'm not missing anybody in between.
No, I thought we had them both.
Last is a recommendation for the appointment to the Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley. William McGee from Northampton, Pennsylvania, replacing William Riley in the Joint Labor Management B2 category. His term will run 2/19/22 to 6/30/23.
Can I highly recommend Mr. McGee?
Second.
Is that a motion?
Yep.
Thank you. That is done. Thank you very much. Next, we have a review of personnel requests and a presentation from the Director of Fiscal Affairs regarding department staff restructuring. Should I read this first? Or are you going to give us some documentation?
Good afternoon, members of council. I am going to give you there's some documentation coming around, just a little bit more about the rationale as to why now, why we are doing this, and what the resolution is all about that I'm asking you to consider and hopefully pass tomorrow night. So first things first, why now? So there are two key people in the county that are retiring at the beginning of next month. One sooner than I had hoped for, Lisa Yandersich. She's leaving after 35 years. The second is Nancy Paplowski after 16 and a half years. Nancy did have a career before coming to the county. She's been a wonderful director of revenue, and we will miss her very much. And Lisa, I can't say enough about willing to take on anything she's asked to do. With Lisa taking on everything she's asked to do, her position has sort of become a place where things just get done. She takes on the work, she automates it, liaises between IT and our ERP system, because our banking never goes out to our external IT vendors for internal control purposes. However, with Lisa taking on the security roles, what ends up happening is several functions she has go across certain departments. Therefore, when Lisa announced her retirement, I gave it a look and saw a whole bunch of things and process improvements that we could make while gaining some changes for Northampton County and some savings for Northampton County. So why is council action required? For the new members of council, position control is specifically in your purview. And I need to create some new positions to be able to identify these savings and to be able to move people around in their job duties, okay? Lisa, over the years, I guess I kind of alluded to this, she's the sole keeper of certain information. Ms. Wondolowski will come here to you and talk about her bus book if the person gets hit by a bus tomorrow. The ability to change this around a little bit will be able to allow me to have cross-training for individuals, and people then I will be able to rely on. One of the things you might not know about Ms. Yandersich is when she goes on vacation, she takes a hotspot with her to do her work. So she's never away from work, and I want to make sure that we have people who are cross-trained to be able to do that job so people can go on vacations and do the things they need to do with their family. The other thing is we're looking at better workflow, and I'll get into the first position specifically to reclassify the pension, retirement, and tech admin in HR. The position is currently occupied by Ms. Mutarelli. That would be moved from a CS-23 to a CS-29. The reason I'm asking for that, and we looked at the duties that her job would now take on, one of the things we do is Ms. Yandersich, when we hire a new person and we onboard them to the county, HR will send information down about a person's position, and oftentimes that position that they're filling, they just get all the same roles and permissions because that's what Lisa knows. However, there might be communication between the director of a department and HR about new permissions in the system they need, access to email lists and things like that. Therefore, it's better that those duties inside the ERP system that we currently operate under all go to Ms. Mutarelli and the HR team, because they know when people are onboarded and offboarded. We have had situations where someone will get terminated. The information will not get to Ms. Yandersich in a timely manner, and we could have security and data issues within our network. It just makes more sense for that to be with HR. So that's the reason I asked for the upgrade to Ms. Mutarelli's position. The second thing I'm asking for is to eliminate an accountant 1 and create a deputy revenue manager, CS-24. The person would be responsible for supervision with the revenue manager, as well as IT management of cash collections, the ERP system, and the register system. Currently, Ms. Yandersich handles all communications with the ERP system from our assessment module, as well as the cash register module in our revenue department. So it's sort of 3 silos that she oversees the security of. I want to give all that to revenue, and we've actually created positions in the revenue department that were supposed to sort of do those functions. And for whatever reason, those responsibilities were never shifted. The people who are in the specialist roles also are union members, and I need somebody else to be in charge of the supervision/discipline, which means I need a non-union position there. So I would like to have that position created. The position existed in the past. They moved to the specialist position, and I see those positions through attrition not continuing, and I will be back to county council to regrade those positions at some point. So I wanted to fill you in on that change. I also would like to convert an Accountant 1, CS22, to a fiscal specialist. We have accountants that can do the work. We have enough accountants. One of the things I need is somebody to actually do the data entry work, vendor maintenance, things in the ERP system that don't require a greater understanding of finance, accounting, or accounting principles. Fiscal specialists are used in human services. We don't have any in the fiscal affairs department. I think it would be a better use of the county taxpayer money to have somebody in a role like that. My 2 Accountant 1 positions are vacant, so converting and changing these positions will not affect anybody currently in any roles right now. And then last but not least, I would like to create a purchasing administrator, CS25. We have somebody over in purchasing right now who actually is doing the work of an assistant purchasing director. We had eliminated that position initially in the budget, probably about 4 years ago. But now that the P cards have become more widely used during the pandemic, we have sent the journal entries and a lot of the accounting work over to an individual in the purchasing office who is doing that work. It's become very, very clear that we need somebody in more of a management role to do that, someone who has an understanding of purchasing and accounting. There's currently a person doing that job. Her position would not be eliminated. However, I believe she's interested in this position and would be qualified. But we have to post it and all those other things at this point. But this is actually a responsibility we need in the purchasing office, because right now, with the hotel stays in the ERAP program and the volume we have going through the purchasing office, it's become an absolute necessity to create a position that's responsible for those smaller purchases and to watch for fraud alerts, changing credit cards on the fly, and just making sure that our bill gets paid on time. We spend about $250,000 almost a month on hotel stays in the ERAP program. So it's a pretty important role and responsibility. So those are the things I need from county council, if you would entertain those, and they're listed in your resolution. I believe the cost savings is going to be about $50,000 to $70,000 in cost reduction. Some of that being, more senior employees retiring, newer people taking on the role. But there is some cost savings and benefits when you restructure the positions. And we are going to have some changes through attrition that I will be bringing to you later. The biggest benefit, though, for the county and the continuing operation is going to be the ability to cross-train. These 4 positions, 3 of these 4 positions will actually have a role in the ERP system, and they will be cross-trained into what Lisa does, and will be able to enact and affect security in our system. They are going to be trusted administrators in their roles, and I believe that they would be able to do, if one person's on vacation, there would be somebody to back up that would actually be able to update the security in the system, which is sorely needed right now. And that's my presentation. Any questions you may have, I'll gladly
Yes, I
entertain
have
them.
some questions, and then I'll go down the lane. When are these folks actually retiring?
Lisa is March 8th. Nancy, I believe, is April 4th. There is another one March 18th in the assessment office, which necessitates quick changes in, how security is handled through assessment, and that kind of affects Lisa's position as well. So there's a bunch of different things happening all at once. And these are long-term employees that have been waiting to retire for a while now.
Now, you said the 2 accountant positions are vacant.
Yes.
So other than Ms. Mutarelli, who's already got a position and is reclassified, do you have people in line and ready, or are you needing to post these positions?
I need to post all the positions. There are people who have sort of been aware of the plan and know that there's some things happening with retirements and have asked about positions. I believe most of these positions will be filled internally. I usually post internally and externally, but I believe there are internal folks that are very interested in these positions and would be capable and willing to step up.
Anyone else have any questions? I knew I was hearing, I wasn't going to say I was hearing music, but I thought I was having a little bit of a hallucination experience, but I'm glad I wasn't. Mr. Cusin.
Thank you. It's a good presentation. My question is with the reclassification for the 2 accounting positions. By changing them from accountant to deputy revenue manager, and what's the other one?
Fiscal specialist, yes.
Does that reduce the qualifications required for the position?
It does reduce the qualifications required for the position. Because you don't require an accounting degree. A lot of these positions, though, for example, in the ERP system or in the ERAP system for rent, one of the things we have is we have an accountant who has other accounting work to do that has picked up vendor maintenance. That can be done by somebody who is not an accountant. And we have it now spread out amongst a whole bunch of the accountants, so they're taking on that extra work. We did have an accountant one retire that was doing a lot of the, reconciliation of bank statements and stuff like that. So we had that accountant retire. Our accountant started doing the reconciliation of the bank statements. And as we were looking at their duties and the position, we realized, hey, we don't need an accountant to do vendor maintenance in the system and stuff like that. Why don't we take those duties back, put them in this new position, and then that way the accountants can actually do the accountant work.
Any other questions? Ms. Zirinsky.
I'm just looking over these sheets and where it says you're eliminating and you're reclassifying. And I don't quite understand how you come up with the 50,000 reduction, because the net change looks like you have a net change of 6,837 on the first sheet, 5,000, that's about $11,000-$12,000. Then on the last sheet, there's a reduction of 2,300. So where does the 50,000?
So on the sheets, it's not necessarily reflected.
Right.
Currently give me 1 second here. Currently, there's a $21,000 savings between where the current incumbent who's retiring, Ms. Andrusitz, is, and the new incumbent that would come in for the programmer analyst position. So much of that savings comes from her retiring because she's at the top of the scale. Now, in the revenue division, I will be coming to county council with when people retire and move around, I'm going to actually be looking at taking maybe some of the clerical specialists and making them a clerical tech 3, which is a lower grade position, because the deputy revenue manager, while learning the job, is going to have a lot of that discipline and those supervisory roles. So it just doesn't fall to one person with all the people that need to be supervised in revenue. Right. So there will be savings in that regard. These changes will not require me to come to county council with a budget amendment.
But so immediately, these changes aren't equivalent to a $50,000 reduction. You're looking at cumulative changes that you may or may not, so that's where that 50,000.
Yeah, and 50 to 70,000 is my conservative estimate. I've put a lot of work into that. That's a conservative estimate as to what I think the savings is going to be going forward in the budget.
Okay.
And what will Ms. Mutarelli's duties be? Will she keep some of her same duties, or is she getting a whole new?
She's keeping a lot of her same duties. She's going to be supervising that ERP security module now. And while she may not do from my understanding, we haven't really talked about all the details of that, but while she may not actually do some of the data entry, she will be responsible for making sure the information gets into the ERP system and that ultimately people are set up in the system correctly. So she might not be doing the actual data entry, but we will make sure that all the process happens in the HR department where it rightfully belongs.
But will she still be able to handle all the pension?
I believe so, yes.
Because, the deal might be off. We really appreciate all the work that she does there. I'm kidding. She deserves a raise and more. She's a very good employee. Mr. Myers?
With the short turnaround you have, are you going to have enough time to train these bodies?
If council approves this for me tomorrow night, I already have Miss Murarelli set up with Miss Andrusitz for next week. The Miss Andrusitz position is already posted and comes down on the 25th, so I believe we will be able to do that. I'm also, my budget administrator, who you've all met, Brandon Dunstane. He has the ability to do things in the ERP system that does not, he can't have the security to do them, but he has a great understanding of the ERP system. So therefore, my hope is that through Lisa, Brandon, Danielle, and then whoever takes over Lisa's position, we'll get enough knowledge. Mrs. Andrusitz has agreed to come back and help out if needs be, if we run into issues or whatever. She's very good like that. But I'm going to make sure I give her enough time to enjoy some of her retirement before we call her.
You answered the second part of that by saying she's making herself available.
Yes, and I know where she lives, so it's not she doesn't live far from me, so I can always show up at her front door.
Wow.
Sounds to me like abuse. All right, so we're going to post these up and try to hire in-house. Is that your plan?
Yes,
You feel confident we'll be able to pick up people in-house?
yes, I believe so.
All right, Mr. Barron, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Do I have a motion to move this forward to tomorrow?
Sure can, I'll make it.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.
With that, if there's nothing else under personnel, we'll adjourn that portion of the meeting and move into the Finance Committee. Any courtesy of the floor for Finance Committee? Hearing and seeing none, let's hear from Mr. Saborski for a review of the controller's reports.
Thank you. I have 5 reports to review today. The first one, we did a performance audit report on the offender supervision fee program as of June 30th, 2020. This program is audited annually. Purpose of the audit was to determine compliance with statutes, court orders, and policies and procedures, to determine the accuracy of internal controls, and determine reasonableness of supervision fee revenue. We tested 25 cases, and in the case of 2 of the courtesy in court cases, supervisory fees were not applied to the case because criminal never received the paperwork from the probation department. Courtesy in court basically is a term used to describe cases transferred to or from Northampton County. If paperwork is not received, fees are not entered into the CPCMS system, resulting in a loss of revenue to the county. And that stands for Common Pleas Case Management System. Our recommendation was that the probation officer should periodically check the CPCMS system and review the defendant's supervision fees, especially in the courtesy in county cases entered into the system. And management's response was they will continue to make efforts to assume that accounts are created and updated as needed. That concludes that report. Any questions?
Mr.
Yes, Mr. Clues.
Myers first.
Okay.
All right, you hit a very important part, that we lost revenue because the probation department didn't do the paperwork. Do you have any idea who's overseeing them?
I would think that'd be the chief adult probation officer.
So how much money did we lose from the fact that?
Well, I understand it was eventually collected. It was
eventually collected.
It was eventually collected. It was $1,020.
But you're saying at that point we missed a little glitch there. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
It's a
that's
common
correct.
thing. It just happened once or twice.
I think it just happened once or twice.
Okay. Then we don't really need to know. Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cusick, did you have your hand?
That was my question, thank you.
Next?
It was interesting, because when I was reviewing this report with the auditor, I said, what is the amount? Because I think Mr. Cusick's going to ask me that question tonight. Yes.
Oh, see,
Okay, I'm going to combine the two magistrates. We did financial audit reports on District Magistrate Robert Weber and Vivian Zumas for the year ended December 31st, 2019 and December 31st, 2020. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on our audit. We conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States and standards applicable to financial audits contain the government auditing standards. In our opinion, in both cases, the financial statements referred to present fairly and in all material respects the statement of changes in assets and liabilities, cash basis as of December 31st, 2019, and December 31st, 2020, in accordance with the cash basis of accounting. That concludes those reports.
Any questions? Okay,
You did both?
We audited both of those, yes.
But we only got Weber.
no, you have both. Zumas is behind,
It's after the hotel. I think there should be a hotel in between those.
There should be a hotel between them. Yep, there is.
okay, and then the next?
The next one, I'm going to take the two hotels. First one was, we did a hotel. This is an agreed-upon procedures audit. It's based on hotel room rental tax for the Hyatt Place for the period ending January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2020. We recalculated all remittance forms submitted during the period, inspected exemption documentation, and found the hotel underreported taxable room revenue when compared to their financial statements in 17 months, totaling $17,109.29. The hotel overstated room revenue when compared to their financials in 4 months in 2019 and 2020, totaling $23,509.59, which resulted in an overpayment of tax to the county totaling $925. We reviewed the 29 unique exemptions taken by the hotel operator. Over the 2 years tested, based on documentation the hotel manager was able to locate, exemptions for long-term groups, long-term guests that stayed in the hotel for almost 3 months were considered one large exemption each month for testing purposes. 3 non-permanent exemptions totaling $1,125 taken in September 2019 for ineligible non-exempt travelers were disallowed. The hotel also overstated permanent exemptions of $3,627 taken in December 2020. We determined that the Hyatt Place is due a credit of $63.75 for the overpayment of the tax. The other one was the extended stay hotel. Now, and I was waiting for Mr. Klusick to ask this question, why do they understate their revenue? Well, the understatement of revenue comes from the fact that there are things that they're supposed to include in room revenue they don't include. Like, for example, pets. If they bring a pet, that's an extra charge. If they're in a smoking room, if they're smoking in the room, that's an extra charge compared to just a regular room rental. So those things they did not have included. As far as the extended stay of America, we recalculated all remittance forms and we found that they underreported taxable room revenue when compared to their financial reports in 7 months in 2019 and 20, totaling $6,337. In 2020, the hotel underreported taxable room revenue when compared to their financials in 9 months, totaling $7,417. The hotel overstated room revenue by $4,471 when compared to their financial statements in 6 months during 19 and 20. Investigating the validity of claimed permanent exemptions by testing a sample not to exceed 50. We found all exemptions taken by the hotel are for permanent residents. When compared to the hotel's exemption records, we found a sample of 50 exemptions that the hotel understated permanent exemptions by $118 in 2019 and $382 in 2020. In 2020, we found the hotel overstated exemptions by $4,381. We calculated all the additional taxes and refunds due by the operator. We determined that the Extended Stay America owes Northampton County $1,598.06 in additional taxes and penalties. Now, a sidebar to this report is we email our financial version of our audit to the hotel. We did that last Wednesday. Within an hour, they emailed us back and said, our checks are run on Tuesdays, we'll have a check for you next Tuesday.
Nice.
Which would have been yesterday. We got an email yesterday from them that the check was run and it was in the mail, which I thought was a great ending to the report.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a review of donation to Department of Corrections for an anonymous donation of $6,700 toward the purchase and training of a canine narcotics dog to be used in the department. So here comes Mr. Castora to tell us all about it. Do we have the dog in mind?
Good evening, or good afternoon. We do not have the dog yet. We have a type of dog, looking into a Labrador, more of a hunting dog. The last canine we did have, excuse me, just to back up a little bit, we did have a dog previously in Malinois that retired with the handler, and that was the middle of last year. And that dog was a patrol / narcotics dog. This will just be a narcotics dog. So we're looking to replace the handler who's moved on to law enforcement on the outside, and the canine went with him, and we're looking to replace the canine with the same donation from the private donation. Excuse me. So we're looking to just start all over again and reboot the program. I think it was somewhat successful, and we're just looking to move forward.
She was here for how long? Like 2 years or 3 years?
Approximately a little over 3 years, I'd say close to 3.25, 3.5 years. Yes,
I remember her name. It was the Malinois, right?
correct, Danny.
Okay.
Any
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Zirinsky.
How long do we normally have these dogs in use for these purposes?
That's a good question, and that's very difficult to answer depending on the type of dog and the experience that we have with the handler and the training team. So they're going to, I would say an estimate, if I was to give a good estimate, would approximately be about 6 years, depending on the type of dog. And then we would have adjustments, and they would say the dog is losing its edge and maybe need to retire. But this dog left a little early, so we're looking to replace.
Okay. Is there a reason why the dog left early? Like, was it?
Well, the handler, we tie the handler with the canine,
Oh, and they just.
so they left together, correct?
That's right, okay. I just was wondering if there was anything wrong with the dog.
No, the dog was in very good health.
Oh, good.
Well taken care of, always vet checks and somewhat, so always healthy, running. There's a certain regiment, the dog's very regimented, at least that type of breed, so the dog was very healthy.
Okay, great, thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Motion to move forward? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the review of the American Rescue Plan Small Business Grants, totaling $1,506,797.25 for 113 projects.
Wow.
I see the team is here. If we have any questions for them?
Just a comment. As the two newest members, we went to this meeting and we found it very on point. They did a good job.
Yes, sir.
I guess I'm still gonna ring the same bell as last time when I would like to see some sort of justification. I understand small businesses have had a tough time. I could speak to that as well as being a small business owner, but at the same time, if this pandemic isn't easing up by now as far as being back to normal business, it never will, because this is our new normal and this is the way it's gonna be. I don't think this is a sustainable model to keep doling out money to businesses. especially when they have absolutely zero justification or showing us any type of need. They're basically signing up and we're giving them, we're signing a blank check. So I do think I would like to see a little bit more accountability as far as some sort of requirement showing that they're not able to earn as pre-pandemic, and there's something omitting them from being able to earn their normal earnings, because I'm looking at some of the businesses on here, and some of them I do business with, and I see this being problematic if we keep doing it like this. I said it before and I'll say it again. That's all.
Any other, sir?
Yeah, I would just add to that, there are some businesses in here that I know we're allowed to stay open, particularly lawn care and accounting. I know that because I paid my lawn service and I paid my accountant, and I didn't hear any issues from them with regard to their revenue. So, again, I think, it's nice that we provide this because of the actions taken by the governor to impact some of these businesses, but at the same time, we can't just keep giving out money indefinitely. So, thank you.
I do want to state that we did address that, or we did discuss that briefly. The purpose of the meeting that we held was to review these folks who were already in the queue and had been waiting for a disposition based on the resolution that we passed a year ago. So this is still the original pool of money. We're still trying to expend that original amount. And I believe that at the meeting, in addition to discussing that, we discussed having somewhat, or trying to create at least somewhat of a timeline to end this. And if you see by this amount of money, I believe we have about half left. If we had 3 million left, we have about half left
Half that
after
left.
this donation. I'm seeing heads shaking, so yes. And if any of you want to come up and speak to what's been addressed, feel free. But I did raise the question of a timeline on this. I believe we have 2 more meetings scheduled, one at the end of this month, one in March, to try to expedite the process. So the other thing, I do want to speak to the fidelity of especially Rebecca, who works in economic development. She is the point person, and Jessica and her team as well. They're finding these people, but Rebecca is handling the disposition of all of these things, and both of these gentlemen can speak to it as well. She is so on point with checking whether this is a legitimate business. If there's any even sniff of a fraud, she's already tossed it out. So we don't just get this list and it's, oh, here's everybody, let's go. There's a lot of people that we reject. There's a lot of people that were on the list like, wait a minute, you didn't give us enough information, so we're not sure. So just so you know from our end, and that's why I want counsel at those meetings, so that we can actually see that the process is legitimate and that there's people not just getting a blank check, that people actually have to apply. And I can't speak to need, quote unquote, but there's some people that have double, triple dipped, husband and wife already got the money. She's on it. And so I just want to at least speak to her efficiency and feeling like she's got our county's best interest in hand. So it was nice to see that. Ms. Zirinsky.
I just want to say that from talking to business owners, there's a lot of circumstances why people need these loans, not just to get a check, not loans,
It's a
but
grant.
grants. Yes, thank you. And some of that is, if you think that you have COVID or someone in your family has COVID, you have to quarantine, and sometimes 10, 14 days. Now, if you own a business where you're doing projects and you have to manage the projects and you have scheduling and things like that, like you would know, you're in construction. Sometimes people cancel those projects or cancel accounts because you're not able to fulfill them right away. Or if you have a small enough business where you only have a few employees and you're quarantining and you have multiple children, you're quarantining not only 10 days, but 20 days. And so some of these things are just circumstances that arose during this crisis that are uncontrollable, that have impacted businesses in adverse ways. And I think that trying to just say that all businesses are the same or businesses are doing this doesn't really, it doesn't really get to the heart of the individual businesses and how they've been impacted, because there's so many different ones, like hair salons.
I wouldn't know about that.
I know. It's a tough business, because if you have an appointment and you have 20 appointments in a day, or whatever it is, 10 appointments in a day, and you have to sequester yourself or quarantine yourself because your kid has COVID, or you have COVID, or someone else has COVID, or you've been exposed to COVID, you lose not only that day's appointments, but 10 days of appointments, and then you have to try to reschedule those appointments. And it's really, it is a lot. So my heart goes out to all these businesses, and I know that a lot of them are struggling. You're always going to get some where maybe people are taking advantage of the system, but I think more than not, we are really helping businesses in the community get through this really difficult time.
I would like to say, it's a very touchy subject to criticize or to even comment. I'm sure most of these businesses need the money. I would think if you asked any business at any given time, pandemic or no pandemic, they're always going to say they need money. Business is tough. Running businesses is tough. And as I can say, during the pandemic, it was difficult, but it wasn't the most difficult time. And I've only been in business for almost 15 years. 2008 was way worse for construction because it stopped dead. And there was nothing, and there was no bailout for us. So I get it. We have government money, $30 million left over. My question is, what kind of help can we give the people that lost their businesses? They aren't able to apply. I want to think outside the box of what can we do with the leftover money, because the people that are still in business, God bless them, they're still in business. That's fantastic. Lots of people went out of business because of people being ordered to lock down. And $15,000 a grant is nothing for a company that's running $10, $15 million a year. That's barely their overhead for their paper costs. So I think there's a good amount of money there. There's a lot of smart people in this room that work on this. And I think, if we're looking at getting people opportunities to get, Bath, Bangor, a lot of poor neighborhoods in the county have their storefronts shuttered. See if we can get people to start businesses back up. I think that'd be a great idea to do with this money. I think that's something we should start looking into.
Mr. Gafredo, I did bring up that point at the end of the meeting, because I heard us discuss it before, and I did ask for them to look at some of that data and maybe bring it back to one of our subsequent meetings. Because I think you have to look and see, like, if there's a need, and then how much of a need, and then you'd have to create new rules regarding that. Because, again, this is the continuation of something that started the first year with COVID money, and now the second layer of money. And the goal in the beginning was to get it out and get it out fast because people were drowning. And now I don't believe that they're drowning at this point. I think they're still hurting. And I agree with some of your points, but, I took that point about businesses that had to close or maybe were working, failed in this past few years and might need a little grant to bump back up and get back into business. So I'm waiting for them to give us that data. And hopefully we can discuss that looking into the future. Mr. Myers?
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up because I was at the meeting and I kept my paper that was handed out to us, and it was broke down quite well, where it was yes, no, no way in hell, and we'll go from there. And nobody's getting a triple tip because that's not happening. And as we're going through this meeting, Madam President spoke about it. We were in touch with the folks. There was Tom, myself, and the president was there. And we're communicating with the folks that are doing this, and we're getting information which kind of caught me off guard because how in depth they were going about it, and even caught somebody who was a little crooked, and we kind of chuckled at it and went, wow. So it's the scary thing about it, you're looking at what money's left. I would really be surprised because while we were told before we left that there's already a pool of people waiting to get what's left. I would be shocked, maybe Tom, you can chime in on that. I don't think we're gonna have much money after March, if we have any at all, because the list was popping back at our faces as we were sitting there. And the biggest check they had here, which to me threw me for a curveball, was, well, they don't have paperwork. They ain't getting any money. Oh, and then there were people who applied before and only took partial of it. And now they're coming back to get the rest of theirs, so that's part of it. And then there were some people that they reduced, so I'm like, you hit every point that I was looking at. And when they looked at it and came back and said, well, he's applying for 15, but he's only getting 3,500 because that's all he's allowed to have. So kudos to them for doing the in-depth job they're doing. I did not realize that when I walked in there and I looked at Tom and we looked at each other and had a conversation, and you guys from both sides of the aisle came out there with a lot of respect for the folks, the job that they did that day. And I give them all the credit in the world that they're on top of it, and nobody's getting a third dip at all. It ain't gonna happen. I think we would fight tooth and nail, but they're also checking the husband and wife things, and there's some of those things we can't do anything about because they got two different businesses.
Well, that's
And
very
Tom, you can
comforting
chime
to
on if you
hear.
want to.
That's great.
Correct.
Jessica, do you have, I'm sorry, John, I just want to say, Jessica, do you want to come and speak to some of the questions that he has? Or maybe about, and I'll let Mr. Cusick make his point while you're coming down. Mr. Cusick?
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, I don't doubt that there are some businesses that were significantly impacted and remain that way. And I also don't question the process. I think that the staff and the members of council has done an excellent job. But I think at some point we need to start moving past this, because our department, I mean, look at all the other grants that they have to administer: CDBG, Grow Norco, the hotel tax, the EMS. So I think my concern is more that I'd like to see this start to wrap up. If we do have people that are still eligible, get your applications in. What bothers me is that programs like this are meant to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I would like to see us start to be wrapping this up so that our department can focus on all the other things that they normally do. So, thank you.
Yeah, of the three, we're lucky if we got 1.5 left, if my memory serves me correct.
That's correct.
Is that right? I think we done knocked out half of it with this meeting that we just had.
Correct. I wish I could tell you a number of how many are left on the air table right now, but I will tell you we are continuously having conversations with small businesses in all the Northampton County. People that have applied, we're missing documents. Yes, we are following up with them to make sure that we get those supporting documents to complete those applications. And a lot of the conversations that we are having is, I'm so sorry, I'm a one-person show right now. I have not checked my email. I have not got back to your voicemail. So these are constant conversations that we're having. Like was mentioned before, different needs for different businesses. One of the biggest things that I'm hearing right now is the supply chain and getting people back to work. People are struggling with that. So this support has helped many small businesses, and we are still having those conversations. Just in this hour sitting here, I had 14 missed phone calls. I guarantee you that most of them are small business grants, finding out how can they apply, what can they do, does this fit for their business? A lot of the newer ones that you are seeing, they may have waited the first year to not apply. They thought other businesses may have needed it more. But right now they're reaching out, I need a lifeline. So it is helping businesses all across the area in all the communities that you represent. And we are working with Tina, Steve, and Rebecca, making sure that we are doing our due diligence to get that supporting documents out together so we can get them in front of you.
Yes, sir.
What type of what kind of documents are they providing to you that you could then say to them, I'm sorry, you're applying for too much based off of what you're giving us? How much information are you getting from them to be able to say they're qualified or they're not qualified?
So we asked for 2019 and 2020 tax returns, not just the Schedule Cs. We're asking for their entire tax forms. We're asking for their business license, their official filing with the state, fictitious name, making sure they're a legitimate business, and then the driver's license to make sure they are who they are. Per the guidelines, it's 25% of the revenue. So that's where Rebecca and Tina and everybody come on here, and they're looking at that revenue from those tax returns. We're just gathering everything from the chamber's perspective and saying, here is a completed document, an application for you to go in front of committee.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
It's always good to have you here. So can we move this forward, or do you have, if anybody has any questions or concerns about something on this list, you're welcome to bring it up at this time or tomorrow.
Motion to move.
Thank you. Next, we have a review of an Article 13 contract, Al Burrell Electric Incorporated. endorsing a contract with them to replace generators at Graysdale and the Juvenile Justice Center over 18 months, total cost of $682,245. I thought we were good on the generators at Graysdale, no? You're shaking your head. I don't want to know. Okay, yes, I do. Let's go.
So these are for the life safety generators at Graysdale. They need to be kept entirely separate from the 3 emergency generators that were installed back in 2018.
Okay,
These are replacing.
Correct. We have 2 existing life safety generators out there that are very old. One dates back to 1974 and the other 1993. So we do have the room out there to consolidate and get rid of these 2 generators and just install one larger one that can handle all the loads.
Mr. Cusick.
What do they run on?
Diesel.
Diesel? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was reading while you were, maybe you gave this information. What are you doing with the generators that you're removing? Are they still operational?
They are still operational, but they would just be scrapped as part of this project.
They'd be scrapped, so there's no chance of them selling to offset some of the costs of the new install?
I don't believe so. I mean, they're so old at this point.
And how old are they? Just, I'm sorry, like I said.
1974 and
Gotcha.
1993.
Yeah, that is pretty old.
I was thinking that, and I didn't say. Would you like something older than you in your yard? Yes, Ms. Zirinsky.
How big are these generators? Does it say here? It says,
I believe they're about 300 kW and 350 kW.
so there's 2?
Yes, one for Graysdale and one for the Juvenile Justice Center.
Okay.
The 4 bids that you received, comparable? What are they?
Yeah, it was a pretty tight spread on the bid range. The low bid being about 682, I think, and the highest was about 750.
So is this the lowest bidder?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Myers?
Is this coming over to the next meeting on time frame on when that's gonna get done, or is this just getting passed here? I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on. Did you hear me?
Yeah, so in terms of
18
the
months, it said, Mr. Myers.
in terms of the timeframe, if council approves the project, it'll probably be maybe close to a year from the time the contractor places the order to the time the generators actually arrive. It's very long lead time on generators right now, so that's why the contract duration was so long.
That's the same thing, we were worried about something else we did earlier this year, correct?
That is correct.
What do you think there?
Any other questions, or can we move this forward?
Motion to move.
Thank you. And is there any other business under this committee? Yes, Mr.
Just
Cusick.
real quick under finance, I know that during last year's budget, we moved some funds into the council contingency for some things or studies we were thinking about doing. I guess my question for the president is, have you given any additional thought with that money? And are you intending to move ahead sometime?
It's not all on me, my friend. I have given some thoughts, and I have one, I would like to move forward with reviewing the IT contract first, but I'm not really sure. I've been relying on Mr. Giovanni to guide me, but I think we need to move on that first, because I believe the contract is up this year.
3 years, yes. 3 years. And
This
then
is the third
optional.
year.
Then it's an optional 5 years after that.
That's all the thought I have.
Tom, who's that contract with?
Vision Technologies.
If you have other thoughts, you can share them.
Well, yeah, I think the other ones were whether or not we wanted to have a consultant do a pay study. I think it's been a long time since we did that. I believe some of the union contracts, it's actually contained within them that we're supposed to do it. And then some sort of operational assessment at Graysdale.
Okay, and we could discuss this further and then, make a plan to go forward.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we budgeted the money for those purposes and,
The only concern I have is I don't want to spend a lot on a consultant. I don't want to overload that. So if you have ideas or, suggestions of people that we've used in the past, or, or if you want to put an RFP out for that, we can talk about that. Hello? Yes? No?
RFQ, RFP, yeah, I think either of those would be
Okay.
worth looking into.
Okay, anything else? Okay, adjourn this meeting. Do we take a break between ours and Mr. Mars? About 5 minutes? Thank you.
We'll be back in 5.